Greetings, Lion Warriors. I'm Scornful Exaltation, and I'll be casting the matches from Group D of the Beginners Tournament organized by Barracuda. If you're not interested in pick phase, use the marked chapters to jump straight to the action. And here we are with Game 1 of this first Group D match. This is Shermenator in blue and Goomba in red. Quick shout out to Shermenator. He's got a pretty sizable YouTube channel, and his recent attention to Line War has brought an influx of new players. So we've seen the player count go up recently, thanks to the attention that he's given the game and the love that he's given it. So quick shout out to him. As mentioned before, this is a beginner's tournament, so I don't really know these players very well. I will also say that I wasn't really happy with the first go of this. I have already recorded one cast of this game, but wasn't happy with it, so we're going to re-record it and take it from there. This is a pretty small near island map, lots of economy on here. It's a very condensed area as well, so this should be a quick one. We've gotten quickly into final pick phase. Whoops. I usually like to start with player 1, so that's the blue player. But we see Goomba getting his production down first, 2 factories in the forest, and then builds a barracks as well. Shermenator opting to put his lines down first. Goes 2 barracks, 3 factories. All of these are in the forest. I do like that he's set up these lines, these backcapping lines, to only receive infantry, so he won't have artillery moving into his backline. All of his factory units will be moving into the center. And this is a lot of production for this early in the game. Notice he's only at plus 50 right now. So Shermenator really pushing that early ego. Goomba, on the other hand, adds a 3rd factory and a town after his initial production. And we see that he's just using the default lines. So he's got artillery moving into the back line. I like, however, that he's got 2 lanes set up. 2 lanes have slightly better pathing than these single lane setups, because single lane commands, the infantry will go in, spread out, and then they'll collapse back towards this one line, and then you'll have little choke points like this where the units slow down to fall in line. So, oh, here we go. This is a good example. This is a good kind of demonstration of it. You see this infantry, or this unit, has to move all the way over here to get back to the line. Then, if there was another infantry or another unit trying to collapse into that line, they would get in each other's way and slow each other down a little bit. Shermenator now adding a couple of farms. Early game farms are good. 150 capital cost. They add 22 capital per minute, so, and they come up really quick. So a nice little, they're a nice way to boost your early game economy if you've got the room for it. If you're not, if you're not under a lot of pressure and you've got a good amount of production set up. Goomba's town is only going to add 45 capital, so still should have a slight advantage there. 444 for Shermenator, 445 for Goomba, so slight advantage to Goomba, but pretty negligible. We see Goomba going for a shipyard as well. Now, Shermenator having this big 3-lane command going through the middle gonna have a local advantage here, takes or is able to win this initial skirmish, moves this up to a 4-lane command. And we are continuing on smartly. Both players do have an energy well in their base, so energy consuming units are certainly on the table, and there we see the airport on the way for Shermenator. Also worth noting, Shermenator already has a command for SAMs and a factory producing SAMs. Goomba realizes that he's losing troops in the middle, and is going to go for an entrenchment. I like this. Sometimes we see newer players go too quickly for entrenchments, but I think this is a good move on Goomba's part, because he's added this shipyard. So he's got naval production, looks like a destroyer, coming out of that shipyard. So he's got naval production rather than extra ground production. Does add a factory though. And the positioning of these entrenchments is also pretty solid. I like that he's anchored them to the coast. So if Shermenator wants to attack the gap, he's going to be taking fire from either side of these, or from, yeah, he's going to be taking fire from both sides. Shermenator now directing some units to attack this entrenchment from the side. Not necessarily the ideal way to do it, but I don't know if this is actually an all units command. When I casted this the first time, this was only artillery, so if this truly is an only artillery command, I like this a lot. Because even with the range bonus that infantry gets in the entrenchment, they will still be outranged by artillery. So this is a free trade for Shermenator. And we see that Shermenator has added his refinery, and we have helicopters coming off of the airport. Not really sure what Goomba's plan is here with these destroyers. Also worth noting, he's got a handful of infantry up here. Is he changing the command? Because these units had stopped. Wouldn't hate seeing them at least come down and capture this territory. Would also like to see some eco development from Goomba. As you can see, his economy is tapped out. 505 for Goomba, 574 for Shermenator. Yeah, Shermenator's got more potential over here as well. Extra land in his back pocket, so hopefully we see transports off of this northern shipyard for Goomba, because he needs to get out of this corner that he's in. Second airport. Okay. Second airport for Sherm. Now, wouldn't hate seeing a bomber switch. Bombers have really good range and are very resistant to ground-based air defense. SAMs can't actually use their gun, which is much higher DPS than the missiles. So it takes more SAMs to deal with bombers, and bombers do a lot of damage per sortie. So I'm gonna have to look for that. Currently it's helicopters, and this airport's still producing helicopters. Goomba saw the writing on the wall over here. Is trying to run some of this infantry back. Could get it a little closer and get more support from this artillery. Trying to. That dot command could have worked. Needed to have that set to move directive though. Now, notice Goomba actually has a ton of artillery here. So Goomba could counterattack. Could likely counterattack and have pretty good success. Sherm's artillery isn't dug in, so although they would get the first shots off, they wouldn't have the range and damage resistance buffs from being entrenched. And we do see a switch into transports for Goomba on the southern shipyard, and also the first transport going out. No energy production though. Gonna need that, especially with 3 destroyers moving as well. Shermenator's second airport is completed, and currently it's helicopters. He might switch this. Also worth noting, Goomba has a trade route here available, which would be really powerful for him, especially already having some ships, so that could help him offset the extra territories that Shermenator has. That said, Shermenator also does have a 3-port trade network available down here. This port would be a little more vulnerable, just being in the middle. We do see Goomba starting a small breakout. So Goomba gonna move forward a little bit. Wouldn't hate seeing this be like a 2-lane, get a little bit more of these units out, and get out more quickly. With all the units single file, this gives Shermenator more time to respond. And with the artillery spread out there, going to be easier targets for this blue infantry on attack move commands. So no longer on the capture move, now on attack command. And once the rest of these red forces catch up, then this fight should start going in Goomba's favor. Who's pulling back? Goomba could still win this fight, I think, if he pulls some more of this artillery down. He could force Sherm to move to deploy some of this artillery over here to this fight, potentially dragging some of that into range of Goomba's defensive position. See an air sortie coming out from Sherm. Gonna launch 4 helicopters now, and there is no air defense on the field. A couple of tanks come out from from Goomba. Should stop shipyard production up here in the north and in the south, actually. Goomba busy trying to manage this southern push, trying to manage these tanks. Does finally have his refinery. You can see that's a lot of energy consumption from the sea units. So all of these boats trying to move, going to stall these tanks. We see Sherm going for an energy depot, so he's going to be able to store up a lot of energy. Or he would be able to store up energy if he wasn't, utilizing the 2-port helicopter. These tanks from Goomba, unlikely to be able to right past these helicopters. 4 helicopters definitely enough to take out non-hasted tanks. And following the helicopters in is the ground force from Shermenator. Those helicopters punched a pretty big hole in this defensive setup for Red. So now Shermenator running through a big clump of infantry. Goomba could bring his destroyers over to help secure the southern edge. And has managed to get infantry on the ground in the north and west, so we'll have to check back in on that, see if he puts some production up there. 585 for Goomba, 870 for Shermenator, so Shermenator with a pretty big income advantage, and now leveraging that income advantage into more production. And this is a very bold, very audacious factory, right in the middle of the map. It's in the open. Goomba definitely has some control. This is actually quite a few sims from Sherm. Shermenator moving in towards that refinery as well. Extra barracks for Goomba. Another factory as well, so we'll be up to five factories, 2 barracks. Is pulling up some sands. It's good to hold these back and not immediately move them forward. This is way too many helicopters for just 2 SAMs to deal with. I think it's definitely better to keep those held back for the time being. Shermenator, meanwhile, punching through the rest of this initial defense line. It looks like Goomba has finally stopped ship production in the south. Wouldn't hate seeing missile boats come out, actually. Missile boats could really constrain the air force of Shermenator, make it really tough for him to make it even tougher for him to use these helicopters. Now they're pulling the helicopters against the left flank of this initial defense line, and yeah, 8 helicopters going to make quick work of this. Sherm's infantry does stop that, or does shoot down that refinery, so these ships are no longer going to be able to move. Ooh, I missed Shermenator getting his own shipyard. Both players really liking destroyers. I think destroyers are more of like a utility unit than something you want to mass produce. Like, they're good for getting vision, they're good for countering submarines, but cruisers, I think, are what you really want for as the backbone of your naval force. And we see Shermenator has also added another factory and barracks in the middle. 4 helicopters sitting on the airport, several helicopters in the field, and just doesn't have the energy production. I think he's got a second refinery somewhere. Maybe not. Okay, yeah, this is 100, this is 25. Okay, got it. Adding a farm, and I don't think there's really anything Goomba can do at this point. Tried to target down a factory, that was certainly not going to work. And this is just too many units from Shermenator. Now Goomba's losing production. 982 for Shermenator to 715 for Goomba. Goomba does have this little landed force in the northwest, but Sherm has plenty of infantry headed that way. So unless Goomba gets a barracks up there very soon, there's no way that force is going to survive. But he's currently adding extra production to try and save his main base, which is probably the better call. There's that second refinery for Shermenator. Shermenator could add another attack lane here. Get better coverage from his artillery, get a little bit of path in here. But he also doesn't need to do anything else. He's got plenty of He's got plenty of muscle here to just run over everything. He will justify no command. Goomba capped up a lot of naval territories, but that's not really translated into success. Like, that hasn't translated into any significant strategic strength. So we should see a GG any moment now from Goomba. Of course, some players like to stay in until all of their buildings are destroyed, which is their choice, but I think the more courteous thing to do, the more graceful thing to do, is to bow out once you recognize that the game is lost. So yeah, we're just gonna watch this massive fist of artillery pound this base into nothing. Once a player has like a big force of artillery like this, it becomes very, very difficult to stop this. Aircraft do really well against artillery, but there's also, you'll notice there's a full dot of SAMs here, there's SAMs mixed into the army, so plenty of air defense. Cruisers could actually do really good work here. Cruisers have great DPS, and they have great DPS, great range, and a lot of health. So parking a couple of cruisers, you know, if Goomba had made like 2 or 3 cruisers, you know, 4 missile boats or so, he could have them parked off the coast and sap a lot of strength out of this attack. And he had the shipyard, so he definitely could have gotten a couple of cruisers on either side, a couple of missile boats to keep it safe. And, okay, this is overkill. This shipyard is 1,000% dead. Shermenator could have just put down a more general command, and these helicopters would kill everything over here. This is so many helicopters. This is a really difficult number of helicopters to deal with. It's like SAMs pop super fast against it with this many helicopters shooting at them. This many helicopters can also volley down interceptors that try to attack. So yeah, this would be a big problem to try and take down. We do see that switch into bombers for sure, but he doesn't need anything to finish this off at this point. Now, Goomba did set up a little production up here. Has a small outpost, 3 barracks, factory, but yeah, definitely not going to be enough to turn the tide in that game. So game 1 goes to Shermenator. Just really strong macro. Not really anything else to say about that. Goomba had a chance to get up a trade route, and could have gotten, or could have used his naval units to support that very narrow central area. So. But that's game 1 complete. That's all for this one.